Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. We are on the final countdown to the 101 day challenge. Today is day, I think it's number 91. So this is the last 10 days. We are counting down the last 10 checklists. Yesterday was day number 1 for the review. Of course, if you have been following this playlist, then you have already received your State Drive badge. You have a full and complete understanding of State Drive. And yesterday, I just kind of walked you through what the experience would be like if you had a one-on-one meeting with me, Blaine Gates, your business coach. Now today, I'm going to take you to the next checklist. All right. So if you were having an experience with me and you say, okay, the first day we did great. Okay, so I wrote down 1 or 2 or 3 of the people who I manage, and we went through the things which I want them to do, their duties at work. We listed them out one by one. And then we talked about how proficient they are at achieving those outcomes. So understanding what you want from your team is step number 1. Step number 2 is understanding how well they achieve those results and then giving them kind of like a report card. Now, we use the State Drive checklist to give them a report card in 2 different ways. One way is to say how successful they are, okay, so 0 to 100%. And then okay, so we have levels of success on the bottom from 0 to 100%, and then we have levels of effort going vertically, 0 to 100%. And when you put these 2 factors together, basically we have 4 quadrants. We have successful and hardworking, which is called competing, and then we have successful and kind of laid back, which we call coasting. Then, of course, the worst one is we have not successful and laid back, which is called recollecting. And then at the top, above that one, when people start working harder but not quite successful yet, we call that one striving. All right, so we give them a report card. So on each individual thing that they're supposed to do in their job, we talk about how successful they are, and we talk about how much energy, how much time, how much effort, how much focus they put into their job. And then this, of course, is going to promote a discussion about what you can do as a manager to provide an environment where they will put in more effort, where they will be able to put in more hours, where they will be able to put in more focus, or to identify things that they're doing right now, but you want them to ratchet down the hours that they're doing. You want to reduce the focus. You want to eliminate this type of behavior. And then we also have a discussion about how can you increase their skills? How can you make sure that they are becoming more successful in their job? How can you provide an environment where they are achieving the outcomes that you want them to achieve? All right, so this is State Drive. This is the first checklist. Now, the next checklist we usually talk about is called State Styles. Now, if we go back, kind of the same pattern that we went through yesterday, okay? So imagine you buy the book. You buy Create Crucial Insight by Thomas Buchholz from Amazon. You spend the $30. The book shows up at your house, and you say, what should I do first? Possibly, you should turn to page 11 and look at these questions. So yesterday we answered the question. Yes, we answered that question. Okay, so today's question. All right, so to what extent does the endeavor appropriately, what? Accomplish work. To what extent does the endeavor appropriately accomplish work? And for me, that was like, I have no idea how to connect that. Because I've been using these checklists for a long time. And for me, I'm just like, there's no connection in my mind between like how much does this endeavor accomplish work and then understanding various work styles. So maybe it makes sense to some people, it doesn't make sense for me. Let's check another page. So we go to page 18, and this is what it says about state styles. It says, decide the extent to which to change how people do some work. Now that is helpful because it's saying decide the extent How much should we change? And what should we change? How people do some work. All right, and actually State Styles presents 6 different ways to do work. And so if you understand the 6 different styles of work, then you could then decide if you want to change how people are doing some kind of work. Also, you can understand types of work behavior people use or like to use. All right, that's also useful. If you can see, okay, this person is really good at this type of work behavior, but they don't like this type of work behavior, or this kind of work behavior is like better for them, then you can probably try to find a way to match up work styles to what people like to do. All right, and then actually you could probably turn to page 19 if you wanted to. It has like kind of like a diagram, and it has the endeavor elements. So it has what? Shape potential at the bottom, form agendas in the middle, and create effects at the top. And then those 3 endeavor elements are connected to the state progress checklist, involving resources, exciting motivations, guiding interactions, and you can go to some earlier videos to understand the connection between endeavor elements and the state progress checklist. But also, you can see that these other checklists, you can see where the author has connected them. All right, so for example, State Styles is connected to perform action. Makes sense. When you are creating effects, when you're doing the work, when you are performing the action, this is when you can categorize the work behavior. How do we need to act in order to accomplish this idea, this endeavor, this project? But it's also connected to excite motivations. So when you're thinking about forming potential, you're thinking about how to excite motivations, it's also important to think about state styles. It's also important to think about what kinds of styles people like, what they can do in order to work more successfully. All right, so what are these styles? Okay, so let's analyze these work styles. So at the very bottom, we have nil. It's called defer doing. And the questions are, what are things that you're doing right now in your organization that you should stop? All right, so there could be things, some behaviors, some work that you're doing, you should stop doing it. Another question is, there may be things that you are not doing at work, but you need to start doing these things. All right, so make a list now. In one column, put, these are the things which we are doing that we need to stop. These are the things which we are not doing, we need to start. Next is the second work style, which is haphazard. All right, haphazard, there's like a bunch of arrows going around. So usually I tell people, like if you were blindfolded and you couldn't see, and I told you to run through the forest, then what's going to happen? All right, so if you're trying to reach the other end of the forest, you might bump into a tree, you might fall into a hole. Okay, so it's haphazard. You're having a very difficult time finding the end of the forest. All right, so we need to achieve the outcome. How do we do it? Haphazardly, which in some cases, it's better than doing nothing at all. Often when you start a new project, you may start haphazardly if you don't really know what to do. Now, the next work style above that, this is, okay, so now if you look at the state drive checklist, remember we were talking about these 4 quadrants. So if you were in the recollecting area, you want to move up to the striving. If you want to increase the effort, then you need to move from nil to something, maybe haphazard. Now, as you move up to the next idea, we're talking about tentative. So tentative means to experiment with processes. And as you experiment with processes, you'll start to notice that you may start to have more success. Obviously, if you have a process for getting through the forest, if you're blindfolded, now if you're experimenting with processes, it means you're not really blindfolded anymore. All right, so now we are starting to look at processes to get through this forest. We try A, we try B, we try C, we try D. Eventually, you're going to get to the next level. So the next work style is called procedural. Now, once you get to procedural, that's where, you should be relatively successful in achieving your outcomes. And in some cases, this is where the focus or the number of hours, you could start to reduce it a little bit because you don't have to spend as much time experimenting with the process, making mistakes. You're actually kind of like a robot or a computer program. You're just kind of doing the work that needs to be done. This is the day in and day out. You're just getting the success that you need, accomplishing the tasks, getting the results, doing what needs to be done, being successful. Now, eventually, as you start to implement procedures, you may get to the point where you're able to use the same process to achieve more than one outcome. This is called embedded. So you start to blend it with other work. All right, maybe you're starting to get a promotion, you start to train other staff, maybe you're starting to you can see how you can blend two processes together, you can achieve more outcomes. Finally, we have the last one, which is called effortless, which means transcend needing and doing. All right, so at this point, maybe you've already got the computer program that does everything that you need it to do. You don't need to actually physically do it yourself anymore. Maybe you have trained some staff and they're doing it for you and you're moving up to the next level. Or maybe you've already achieved the result that you need to achieve and you don't need to do that action anymore. So that is the combination. Now, so think about ways that you can combine the state drive, the state styles checklist together, come up with some ideas of what are the work styles that you're doing right now, and think about where you can make changes so you're either moving up or moving down. This has been Space Between Ideas. I'm Blank Gates.